It's interesting how people wait until the momentum has already shifted to start worrying about the consequences of their actions. You had a window of opportunity to try and disrupt my peace, but you missed it, and now the clock has officially run out. Let's be incredibly clear right from the jump, because I can see the confusion starting to set in behind your eyes as the reality of the situation hits you. You're wondering why it seems like the people who harbored the most resentment toward you are suddenly the ones being exposed in the most embarrassing ways. The truth is quite simple. Hate is a heavy burden that makes people incredibly reckless, loud, and eventually very sloppy. It wasn't a stroke of luck that brought the truth to light. It was the fact that someone finally let their guard down because their obsession with your life outweighed their own self-preservation. Hate doesn't just sit quietly in the corner. It actively erodes a person's ability to think logically or act with any sense of caution. When someone is consumed by the need to see you fail, they stop playing the long game and start making desperate, impulsive moves that they think will go unnoticed. But because resentment eventually removes all sense of self-control, they inevitably slip up in front of the very audience they were trying to win over. It isn't because they were being brave or showing some newfound power. It's because they were so focused on watching your every move that they completely forgot that the world was watching them too. This is the classic case of someone playing themselves while they were busy trying to play you, and now they have to live with the fallout of their own lack of discipline. I am speaking directly to those of you who have been moving in silence, keeping your head down, and focusing on your own growth while the noise around you got louder. You've been staying focused on your purpose, trying to rise above the petty nonsense that seems to follow anyone who is actually doing something meaningful with their life. At the same time, this is a message for the ones who watch from the sidelines and mistook your quiet nature for a lack of strength or your patience for a green light to keep pushing boundaries. There is a specific kind of person who doesn't just dislike you from a distance. They become a student of your life, tracking your progress and waiting with bated breath for you to make a mistake. When you don't stumble, their irritation turns into a mockery that eventually transforms into a dangerous level of arrogance. Let's be honest about the reality of being chosen for a specific purpose, position, or level of influence. People who are truly set apart by their talent, timing, or resilience don't need to walk around with a megaphone announcing their arrival to the world. Their presence does all the talking that is necessary, and their progress serves as the ultimate evidence of their value. When you are operating in your true purpose, you don't actually have to show up for every fight or respond to every critic who throws a stone your way. Time has a funny way of fighting those battles for you, and pressure has a way of exposing the truth without you ever having to lift a finger in retaliation. Eventually, the very people who are trying to break your spirit end up cracking under the weight of their own toxic behavior and unaddressed insecurities. You might be asking yourself why they felt the need to go as far as they did, challenging the very foundations of what keeps you grounded and mocking the values you stand on. The answer is that they were trying to prove something to themselves, more than they were trying to prove anything to you or the public. They desperately needed to believe that you weren't actually as protected, supported, or favored as you appeared to be. If they could prove that you were just ordinary and lucky, then they wouldn't have to feel so inferior about their own lack of progress. When reality refused to cooperate with the fake narrative they built in their heads, they got careless and started making mistakes that are now impossible for them to hide or explain away. Think about a fly that keeps buzzing and crashing against a glass window pane. It doesn't realize that the very thing it's fighting is actually what's keeping it trapped in its own cycle. It keeps hitting the same spot over and over, under the delusion that persistence alone will save it from the inevitable. That is exactly what happened here. Someone kept testing your boundaries and pushing your buttons, assuming that your lack of a loud reaction meant there would never be a consequence. They confused your tolerance for fear and your delay in responding for an escape from the truth. Now, they are realizing far too late that patience is never the absence of power. It is the ultimate expression of control and strategic restraint that they simply do not possess. The most empowering part of this entire situation is the fact that you didn't have to be the one to expose them to the world. You didn't have to spend your precious energy on a revenge plot, or waste your time trying to prove that they were lying about your character. Their own words did the heavy lifting for you, and their own actions eventually told the story that they were trying so hard to hide. This is the inherent power of being a chosen person. You don't have to chase validation from the crowd because you naturally attract revelation. Your energy demands a certain level of authenticity from everyone around you, and those who are incapable of being real will eventually reach a breaking point where their true nature is revealed for everyone to see. Let's address the enemy for a moment, because we both know they are listening to every word of this message with a mix of fear and regret. You really should have stayed quiet and remained an observer from the shadows instead of letting your envy speak before your wisdom could catch up. You made the mistake of thinking that having access to someone's life was the same thing as having control over their destiny, and you mistook proximity for actual power. Now you're standing in the wreckage of a moment you can't take back, wondering how the tables turned so quickly and why no one is buying your excuses anymore. This is what happens when you let your emotions outrun your intelligence. You end up losing the very influence you were trying so hard to protect. For those of you watching this and feeling that strange, comforting mix of validation and relief, let this be your official reminder to stop shrinking yourself. You've spent too much time questioning your own intuition and wondering if you were just imagining the disrespect that was being directed your way. You didn't imagine a thing. What you sensed was entirely real, and what you felt was a direct reaction to the energy they were putting out. The truth is surfacing now, because that is what truth does when enough pressure is applied over a long enough period. This isn't about you seeking revenge or celebrating someone's downfall. It is about the universe coming back into alignment and removing the obstacles that were trying to block your path forward. When you are walking in your purpose, certain doors will close automatically, and certain people will effectively disqualify themselves from your future without you saying a word. You don't need to participate in the games they are playing, because you are operating on a completely different level of consciousness and intent. While they are busy scrambling to clean up the mess they made with their own mouths, you are being positioned to move forward with a lighter heart and a clearer mind. Your job isn't to look back and gloat. Your job is to keep walking toward your goals. While they are stuck in a loop of explaining their past mistakes, you have already moved on to the next chapter of your success, completely untouched by their noise. Before we dive deeper into the mechanics of how these people expose themselves, I want to invite you to stand with this message of empowerment. If these words are resonating with you and helping you see your situation more clearly, please like this video so it can find its way to others who are currently being tested by the same kind of pressure. Subscribing to this channel is how you stay connected to content that is real, transformative, and designed to keep you grounded in your truth. If you find this work valuable, consider supporting the team through a super thanks, as it helps us continue to produce these high-energy messages that serve as a shield for those being unfairly targeted by the world's noise. The first major realization you need to have is that when someone's dislike for you turns into a public mistake, they are essentially letting their grudge write their own confession. There is a specific point in every conflict where confusion finally gives way to total clarity, and you realize that you weren't the crazy one for sensing the tension. Someone didn't just dislike you in private, they let that resentment ferment and grow until it became something reckless and uncontrollable. They made a public error not because they were forced into it, but because resentment always craves an audience to validate its existence. You didn't cause their downfall. Your simple existence and consistency merely acted as a mirror that they were too insecure to look into for very long. We need to be clear about the fact that secure and fulfilled people do not spend their time monitoring the moves of others or plotting how to mock their progress. The very moment someone starts watching your life more closely than they watch their own, the outcome of their journey has already been decided. You were never in a competition with them, but they were in a desperate, one-sided competition with the version of you they could never become. When people can't reach your level, they try to pull you down to theirs. But that strategy only works if you agree to get in the mud with them. By staying grounded, you force them to keep reaching until they eventually overextended themselves and fell flat on their faces in front of everyone. What should really wake you up is the fact that they didn't just slip up in a private conversation. They slipped up where it mattered most, where actions are seen and words are recorded. The mask they were wearing didn't just fall off. It cracked under the pressure of having to maintain a lie for so long. Once that crack appears, everything they've been hiding starts to leak out, and there is no way to put that genie back in the bottle. It's like someone trying to carry water in their bare hands. No matter how hard they squeeze, the truth is going to spill eventually. That spill is what the world is finally seeing, and it is the ultimate proof that your silence was never a sign of weakness, but a sign of incredible discipline. Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It is a sophisticated strategy used by those who understand the value of restraint. You didn't respond to the jabs and the rumors because you didn't need to. You understood a fundamental law of human behavior that your enemies ignored. People will always reveal their true character much faster if you simply get out of the way and don't interrupt them while they are talking. While they were busy crafting a fictional story about who you are, they were accidentally writing a very accurate description of their own lack of integrity. Being chosen means you are held to a higher standard of behavior, and your refusal to react with chaos is exactly what caused their eventual unraveling. For the chosen ones, life is rarely easy because the pressure is constant and the misunderstandings are frequent. People will test you simply to see if the peace you claim to have is real or just a performance for the public. The hardest part of this path is realizing that you don't get the luxury of reacting the way everyone else does. You are being watched too closely for that, so your restraint becomes your primary source of power and influence. They expected you to meet their chaos with more chaos, but when you gave them consistency instead, it drove them to a point of frustration where they couldn't help but expose their own motives. To the enemy, who thought they were being clever, you should have stayed disciplined and neutral. You let your emotions cloud your judgment and spoke when silence would have been your only protection from the truth. You chose to mock from a distance when keeping that distance would have saved your reputation from the fire you started yourself. Now, the very things you tried to use as ammunition against a good person have been turned into evidence against you. This isn't a case of bad luck or the universe being unfair. It is a direct result of your own poor self-control and your inability to handle someone else's success with any shred of grace. Think of this entire situation like a game of high-stakes chess. The chosen ones don't rush the board or celebrate their victory before the game is actually over. They don't feel the need to explain their strategy to people who wouldn't understand it anyway. But the impatient player always moves too fast because they are driven by ego and the need for immediate validation. They underestimate their opponent and assume they've won before the checkmate is even in sight. Suddenly, it's game over. Not because the winner was the loudest person in the room, but because they were the most precise and patient. You don't need to defend your name anymore. The results of the game have already done that for you. Now we enter the territory of small, petty moves that were designed to hide much larger intentions. You've likely dealt with little jabs, loud whispers, and those subtle attempts at sabotage that were meant to keep you off balance. These actions were so minor on the surface that if you had called them out at the time, people would have accused you of being sensitive or overreacting. But you weren't overreacting because you were reading the intention behind the action, not just the action itself. Intention always leaks out, no matter how much someone tries to wrap it in a joke or a misunderstanding. Petty behavior is just a symptom of a larger truth that someone is too cowardly to say to your face. People don't invest their energy into tiny, repeated acts of disrespect unless there is something much bigger driving that behavior. Nobody keeps a tally of someone they aren't threatened by. So when someone goes out of their way to be dismissive or passive-aggressive, they are revealing their own obsession. These small moves were actually rehearsals tests to see how much they could get away with before you finally stood up for yourself. They assumed you wouldn't notice, or that your desire for peace would make you a permanent doormat. When you didn't give them the reaction they wanted, they had to escalate their behavior, which is exactly how their small, clever moves turned into loud, undeniable mistakes. Your consistency as a chosen person is a direct threat to someone who is living a lie or struggling with their own identity. Your composure feels like a judgment to them, even if you never say a word about their life. Your progress feels like a personal attack on their stagnation, so they try to externalize their discomfort by taking shots at you. Every sarcastic comment and every passive-aggressive post was a breadcrumb leading straight back to the fact that they were never indifferent toward you. They were watching you with an intensity that bordered on the unhealthy, and that pressure eventually caused the cracks in their own character to become visible to the public. You need to stop downplaying what you observed during those periods of small disrespect. Stop minimizing the patterns of behavior just because there weren't any fireworks or dramatic confrontations at the beginning. You don't need a mountain of proof to validate your own awareness of a situation. The fact that you noticed the pattern without letting it knock you off your path is a sign of immense spiritual and emotional strength. While they thought they were being subtle, they were actually documenting their own mindset for everyone to see. When you do the same small thing a dozen times, it stops being an accident and starts being an undeniable part of your character description. There comes a time when you realize that while you were busy living your life, someone else was busy trying to rewrite your history. It hurts to realize that someone is lying about you out loud, especially when you've done nothing but try to move with integrity. Silence feels risky in those moments because it feels like you're letting them win the war of public opinion. But silence in the hands of the chosen is actually a form of pressure that forces the liar to keep talking. Lies require constant maintenance and new details to stay believable, whereas the truth can just sit there and wait for the noise to die down. By not participating in the circus, you force them to exaggerate until their story no longer made any logical sense. Lies are expensive to maintain. They require energy, memory, and a constant need to protect the narrative from outside scrutiny. Truth, on the other hand, is completely free and requires zero maintenance from you. While they were busy patching the holes in their fake story, reality kept moving forward, and people started to notice the inconsistencies. Timelines didn't match up, and their emotional reactions began to look performative rather than genuine. The fear of being misunderstood is a heavy weight to carry, but you have to trust that the people who actually matter will see the pattern of your character over the noise of someone else's temporary lies. It is a paradox that the more you are set apart for a purpose, the more you will be misunderstood by those who operate on impulse and ego. Your restraint looks unnatural to them because they can't imagine not hitting back the moment they feel slighted. When you don't react the way they expect, it creates a deep sense of unease within them, driving them to become even bolder in their deceptions. They mistook your silence for permission to keep lying, but they didn't realize that they were just hanging themselves with a longer rope. The more they talked, the less believable they became, until finally, the only person who believed the lie was the one telling it. Your stillness during that period wasn't passive. It was the most strategic thing you could have done for your future. You allowed the unpolished, true version of your critics to come out for everyone to see. People trust patterns far more than they trust isolated explanations. And over time, your pattern of consistency began to speak much louder than their pattern of reactivity. Eventually, the questions from the public changed from "what did you do?" to "why is this person so obsessed with you?" That is the moment the narrative flips permanently, and you don't have to say a single word to facilitate it. You just have to keep living your truth. We have to talk about the moment where they finally pushed you far enough to get a reaction, because this is where they try to flip the script. If someone keeps poking a calm surface, they have no right to be surprised when it finally ripples. You weren't being explosive or unstable. You were simply reaching the natural limit of human restraint after being pushed intentionally for a long period of time. People who only show up for the reaction without acknowledging the provocation are not interested in the truth. They are only interested in control. They wanted that reaction so they could point to it and say, "See, I told you they were the problem." But the context of the situation tells a very different story. When a chosen person finally responds, it is never an impulsive act. It is the result of an accumulation of disrespect that has finally become too much to tolerate. You didn't snap because you lost your mind. You spoke up because you decided that your boundaries were no longer up for negotiation. Think of it like bending a metal rod. It looks perfectly straight and solid until the exact moment it reaches its breaking point. The person applying the pressure is the cause of the break, not the rod itself. Your reaction wasn't the problem. It was the evidence of how much you had been enduring in silence while everyone else was looking the other way. Don't let anyone rewrite the chapter of your life where you finally stood up for yourself as a moment of weakness. That was the moment you drew a line in the sand and signaled to the world that your kindness is not a weakness and your patience is not infinite. To the ones who pushed you hoping for that moment of exposure, they ended up highlighting their own cruelty instead of your flaws. They raised questions about why they were so invested in your space and why they needed that reaction so badly. By pushing you to the edge, they moved the spotlight onto their own behavior, and now they have to deal with the glare of that truth. You don't owe anyone endless access to your patience, and you certainly don't owe politeness to people who have shown you nothing but repeated disrespect. Your reaction was a boundary finally enforced, and that awareness alone changes how people will approach you from this day forward. Pressure only works when it remains invisible. Once you expose the pressure, it loses all of its leverage over you. You didn't lose your edge by speaking up. You sharpened it. You showed that you are controlled but not passive, and that is a combination that makes people think twice before they try to test you again. As we wrap this up, remember that those who misjudged your strength are now the ones paying the price for their own arrogance. They thought your calm was an act or a sign of softness, and that miscalculation led them into a trap of their own making. You don't need to chase justice because clarity has a way of following you wherever you go. While they are busy replaying a single moment of your life, you are already 10 steps ahead, moving with a level of clarity and purpose that they will never be able to reach. You have been set apart for a reason, and no amount of noise or petty sabotage can change the destiny that has already been written for you. Stay composed, stay grounded, and let the truth finish the work that your silence started. You have navigated the storm with grace, and now it is time for you to enjoy the sunshine that comes after the clouds have cleared. The world is finally seeing what you knew all along, and you didn't have to lower yourself to get there. Keep walking your path, because your journey is far from over, and the best parts are still yet to come. You are protected, you are favored, and you are exactly where you are supposed to be.